Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're gonna be sitting down with Brad Hawthorne, and he's gonna break down a bunch of details on how he's going to attack Mille Lacs Lake this spring for Walleye Opener. Minnesota Walleye Opener is a big event. I know a lot of you guys are gonna be out there, and this information is gonna be really useful whether or not you're fishing on Mille Lacs or you're fishing on some other lake. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
We got a few days before opener here, and this year's a little different. We already have lily pads popping up in shallow. We already have weeds popping up out into 12, 13 feet of water, at least in the Mille Lacs area. And I've been on a number of lakes the last month, just kind of poking around for crappies and bluegill. And let me tell you, spending that screen time, you know, they say kids should only be limited to screen time or whatever. Right now, I'm sitting in front of that screen getting as much time as possible because data means fish, and the more data I have means the more fish I'm gonna catch. So get metric with spending a lot of time on that screen. Look at that side imaging, look at that water temperature, and don't be surprised when you get out there, you're gonna see those weeds popping up. I mean, I was shocked to see on Mille Lacs cabbage already starting to form on that first break. Usually it doesn't happen for a few weeks after opener. So get out there, make sure everything's running good, and get that screen time in. Trust me, you don't want to be staring at your screen going, where are they come opening fishing? If you can get out there and have your water temp dialed in, and the other part to look around, especially on big lakes like Mille Lacs, when we get ice, it'll move that rock around ever so slightly, sometimes push a big boulder off. Like, take note of these things. This is a time of year to start doing your due diligence and getting out there and learning the lake better.
Now Brad is gonna bust out the map and he's gonna share a few key locations that he likes to target for opener.
So I'm gonna be looking anywhere there's a lot of sand on Mille Lacs. That's where I'm opening up. I've opened up on Mille Lacs for years and years and years, and I look for sand or gravel. And I'm really not paying attention to large bouldery rock this time of year because it's not spawning habitat. Now with the warmer water, we may see a lot of fish in those areas, but I'm sticking with what I've known for 25 years in my guide career is I'm gonna stick to that. Basically from Pikes Point all the way down to Agate Bay Resort, that whole north end of the lake. The water is gonna be warmer, and I'm gonna zoom in on some of this stuff. Like you take, you know, Garrison Bay, for instance, got sand on either side of it, pretty much all the way to Miramar and then down to Pikes. I always like looking in there. That's a really good area, basically from 4 to 16 feet. Just go in there and side scan, high speed scan, and see what you can find. The other place is basically from Agate Bay all the way up to Fisher's Resort, even right in front of Fisher's Resort. It's a great place to open up. There's always a pile of fish there. But that's where I'm looking. I'm looking on either on top of that first break or just on the bottom of it. So Garrison Bay, pretty much right out in front of the McDonald's sign, you're gonna find some fish there. And then if you head on over here to the Fishers area, you're gonna see what I'm talking about right there. You know, so you got 17 Creek that comes out of there, you got Agate Bay Reef, and then you got the sand out here in Malmo Bay right in front of Fishers, which is always dynamite because there's a lot of bait up there, the fish spawn up there, and the water's always warmer. So pretty much start looking in that 12 to 6 foot of water, and you're gonna find fish along the whole north end of Mille Lacs. Now, if you gotta be one of those rock guys and go down to the south end, which is a lot of fish down there too, take a look at that smaller rock. You know, the rock that's smaller than your fist, you know, like from this to like this. Don't get into that big, huge cobbly stuff. You know, a lot of the larger females will go there and kind of rest up after the spawn, but the spawn, I was out weeks ago, guys, when I'm telling you that spawn happened 2 or 3 weeks ago on Mille Lacs. So these fish on opener should be really poised up. You know, you get that post-spawn funk a little bit right after that for about 2 or 3, 4 days. I don't think that's gonna happen this year. These fish are gonna be on fire. So hopefully these areas that I pointed out on the map here will do you guys a solid. But just remember that warmer water on the north end is where they spawn, it's where there's bait and the warm water.
Next up, let's hit on the topic that I know a lot of you are curious about: what baits Brad is gonna be using in an opener, what he's gonna have tied up on his deck.
So coming into this year, I'm gonna have a little bit more of aggressive tactics on the bow of my boat getting ready for this year. You know, I know the fish have spawned ahead of time this year. The water's gonna be warmer. We've got weeds already popping, and that means I'm gonna dive into a lot of things you won't see me using until, you know, later May into June. One is hair. This is an aggressive approach for snap jigging. You can put a live minnow on there. You can put plastics on here. Definitely, if you guys aren't good at throwing fuzz, fur, tinsel, whatever you want to call it, this is the year to really get dialed in on it, because the fish are going to be biting these things. The other one is plastics. Like, I shouldn't even be showing you. That's one of my all-time favorite colors on Mille Lacs, blackhead. Like, that's just super, super delicious. The other one, this one, forward-facing sonar dream right here. I debated even throwing this one up. That's got my underspin. It's black on black. This falls super, super slow. And if you see a fish, you see those little candlesticks on your hummingbird, flick out to them. This guy will flutter down and it'll just sit like that and I'll come up here. So natural color with a little bit of flash on your V-jig, that is absolutely money. Again, aggressive. You can snap jig this, you can point and shoot with this, or you can jig troll with this. So that is a little special one right there that'll gonna help you guys catch a lot of walleye on opener. The other one, this is my tried and true. A tungsten jig with the eye candy grub. This guy here is my Swiss Army knife of catching walleye when you're not sure what mood they're in. If I'm trying to judge mood or kind of wondering where I'm gonna go, if I'm gonna go paddle tail, if I'm gonna go jig crawler, whatever I'm gonna do, I start with my grub. Sometimes you keep the grubs on all day, but a lot of times, this guy, if you're not gonna, if the fish are kind of with the grub, usually they'll go on the paddle tail, or it tells you to simply slide a shiner on this and get back down to the basics. So these guys all right here is gonna be what's on deck for the 2024 opener. Because of the warm water, weeds popping, and I'm looking forward to those fish being out of that post-spawn funk.
Now, one of the biggest keys if you want to have success this time of year in spring is having a good system for going about covering a lot of water and finding fish. So in this next segment, Brad's going to share his 1-2-3 punch, 1-2 punch, 1-2-3 punch approach for finding fish this time of year.
So my approach to finding walleyes has not really changed over the year. Technology has gotten better and we have more options. But number one, I start with my map, and then I go from my map to likely areas I think they're gonna be from experience, and then I go right into side imaging. Side imaging for me is my number one tool I use year round to try to find or to find walleyes. And that lets me know the size of the school, what they're relating to, how many are in that school, and what depth of water. And also, the part that everyone leaves out, I call it high-speed scanning. I can cruise along at 4, 5, 6, 7 miles an hour and high-speed mega image. It's just wonderful. I can see big, long tracks of walleyes. And then, so mapping, side imaging, and then I deploy either Mega 360 or forward-facing sonar. Forward-facing sonar is absolutely awesome. So once you mark that big school, and I don't care if they're swimming upside down, which way they are, I just care that they're there. So once I find out where they are, I spin the boat around, drop my Mega Live down, and then I start figuring out where those fish are, and then start casting at them. The only one thing you gotta add in there is whatever you think is the best way to extract those fish, whether that's gonna be jig and minnow, pitch and puppet, whatever it is, whatever, jig and plastic, whatever you want to throw, whatever's in your mind's eye to do that, have it tied on, ready to go. But that's my 1-2-3 approach. Mapping, side imaging, and then forward-facing sonar. And arguably, the most important one out of all those is gonna be your side imaging. You know, that's gonna allow me to process miles of shoreline relatively quickly. So if you're worried like, hey, I don't have forward-facing sonar yet, Mega side imaging will give you a ton of detail and get you 90% of the way there. So if it's all you got, utilize it, and happy opener all.
Well, that's about all we got for you in this video. Special thanks to Brad for sharing a bunch of really good info, and hopefully it'll help a few of you catch a few more walleyes this year, this spring, whether it's on opener or the weeks after. And if you need some help picking out some baits, you can also head over to Northland's website. They have a walleye opener kit, which has a bunch of different things, a bunch of different jigs, plastics, a few crankbaits that'll help you catch a few more fish this spring. Just some good hand-picked stuff. But if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, make sure to hit that little red subscribe button down below, because we have a lot more awesome content coming in the future. And until then, we will see you in the next one.